Hey fabricators, we are back with another Advancing Fabric, brought to you by Advancing Analytics, a data and AI consultancy. I'm joined once again by my colleague and friend, Johnny.
Hello, fabricators.
Hey. And we have some amazing news this week. Hopefully you've been tuning in to Microsoft's Ignite conference, but if you haven't, we have some great news. We want to touch on a few highlights today, and we're going to go into super depth around a lot of the announcements that have landed during this month. So the biggest one, Johnny, is Fabric is now GA, so it's generally available.
Yeah, massive announcement. We have reached general availability.
Yeah, which is brilliant. And just to kind of point out that isn't all of the workloads that are GA. So you mentioned in our last video that Data Activator was just released, so that is still in preview at the moment.
Yeah, there's a blog announcement that Microsoft have put out from Arun. Craig calls himself the chief fabricator, but actually Arun, he's the real chief fabricator. He's the head honcho over at Microsoft. So he runs through in this blog here everything that's available, and yeah, it is now live.
Yeah. So there's lots of great things in there, but I mean, so for your average person, Johnny, what does that actually mean when we say it's generally available? Because I mean, when you look at these workloads, like if I went into the data factory experience or if I went into the data engineering experience, most of it's going to look the same as it did at the beginning of the week or last week. So what's different?
What is the difference? So I actually had a call with some folks from Microsoft early today. It wasn't actually about this, but it just sort of came up in conversation. And we said, I asked a similar question. What does it mean? So effectively, it means that this is now ready for production workloads. It means that if you do find any issues with it, so when something's in preview, if something breaks, people just kind of shrug their shoulders and say,
yeah,
well, it was in preview.
It was your own fault.
Yeah, exactly. Now this is generally available, which means that Microsoft are a little bit more on the hook in terms of providing that support if you are experiencing any issues. So definitely, if you do come into any errors or anything like that in the service, hopefully not, but if you do, make sure you're raising those support tickets with the folks over at Microsoft. The other thing that general availability does is we start to get a better picture of how much this is going to cost us.
Yeah.
So
we're no longer limited to that preview pricing, or this might change when we go to GA.
Yeah, absolutely. So throughout the preview, obviously a lot of this, there were trials available anyway, and so you could have trial workspaces, and effectively you were getting your compute for free. But even alongside that, during the preview, you still could get an F2 SKU or an F4 SKU and do pay as you go. Now, the pay-as-you-go pricing hasn't really changed. It's still, that option is absolutely still there. The advantage for me with pay-as-you-go is that you can pause it. So if you say you only actually really need your workloads to be available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, just pay for it Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Keep it switched off overnight. Keep it switched off over the weekend.
Yeah, You've got that flexibility to kind of shape it depending on your organization's requirements. So if you don't have that 24/7 requirement, then you can be a little bit more kind of fine-grained with the tuning. Yeah, quite like that.
Absolutely. And if we take sort of the lowest SKU on there, an F2 at £252 a month, which I think is still pretty good value. But for argument's sake, if you do need to just be on, even if that was 12 hours a day, 9 to 5 Monday to Friday is an even smaller period of uptime. Yeah. But if, even if you went to 12 hours every day, 7 days a week, you'd be paying half the price. You're down to sort of £125. The other currencies are available, obviously. The new thing in terms of the GA availability is its reservation pricing. So reservation basically gives you a big old discount for committing to having it always on. So if you do have 24/7 operations, you do need it to be on around the clock. You can pay for that up front, and because Microsoft know that they're guaranteed your income, they're not going to be at the whim of your administrator switching things on and off. They'll be your commitment this to be on all the time have a whopping discount. So yeah, you're looking at 40, is it 41% everywhere?
Yeah,
41.
yeah. That's pretty significant as well. So it's good to see that they've kind of considered these things. There is discounts if you are making that commitment, and it's great to see those now available now that we are GA with Fabric.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we are all go on the Fabric front.
Awesome, that's great. So, I mean, this isn't the only news that's dropped so far. Certainly for us, the most exciting part or the largest piece. What else have we seen? I mean, there's been a couple of mentions around Copilot. Was it maybe one or two?
Copilot? What's Copilot? Yeah. So I think my new favorite hashtag is just Copilot all the things because it's so prominent.
That's a t-shirt right there.
Yeah, we need more t-shirts. So got here, this is a post from Zach, who is our head of engineering at AA. He did a really brief analysis looking over the book of news in search for AI, and there are over 240 results. And I know full well that there is a word that supersedes that word. What is it, Craig?
Copilot.
It is Copilot. So I guess Copilot isn't just a Fabric thing. There seems to be so much excitement across all of Microsoft products around the Copilot type stuff. But yeah, absolutely, it's coming to Fabric. I guess we just talked about general availability. The Copilot announcement is that the Copilot element's going to be in preview. Mm-hmm. It's also not necessarily available straight away. So there'll be people out there if you're searching. I certainly had a look in our tenant today. Did you have a look?
I did, yeah. I couldn't see it initially. I take it this will be region-specific rollouts, as we've kind of seen with other previews in the past.
Yeah, I presume so. So this talks about on this page that it's going to be rolled out by March 24. I'm looking at the wrong page. It is.
It is in there. I definitely saw it. Yeah.
There we are. So the enabling stages will be available for everybody by March 24. It's also worth noting that it is going to be rolled out to customers with a F64 SKU and P1 to have access to in the preview as well. So again, that's not everybody. It depends what SKU you're buying as well. But yeah, Copilot looks exciting. There's lots of cool stuff it can do. It just writes your code for you, and it might put us out of business, but it was still quite exciting.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the messaging that Microsoft were kind of leaning into the most is that the co-pilots for each of these components in Fabric, because it's not just like Power BI for creating reports and things. You've got Copilot, as the article you showed there demonstrated, Copilot around Data Factory. You've got Copilot for your notebooks to kind of help you with your Spark as well. So there's different elements, but the kind of overall messaging that they were driving was that this is about helping you and about assisting you, and not necessarily replacing you in your skill set. It's basically getting past those kind of initial things. I mean, I certainly know that when using tools like this, AI tools like ChatGPT, it kind of gets you that first 10-15% quite easily, and then you can fill in the gaps, or it kind of finishes that 10 to 15% for you as well. So it'd be really good to see how people can leverage that across Fabric and just make those kind of more kind of mundane tasks or the kind of basics, and just take away some of that initial kind of skills ramp up for them as well.
Yeah, as you say, it's more around productivity as opposed to sort of automation and job replacement type stuff. I think in one of the demos, they were showing the Copilot experience in notebooks, and that even flashes up with a disclaimer that says AI can sometimes be wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, check this before you actually, start using it in a production workload. But it's still pretty cool to watch.
And I mean, after 15 years of using Stack Overflow, I mean, like, I always check the code before you run it first, right?
Yeah, totally. The copy and paste keys on my keyboard are not worn out at all, I promise. What else then? Anything else good that sort of stoked your interest?
So something that I found really interesting and I'm quite excited about, and we're definitely going to do a much deeper dive on this as well, is mirroring. So this is essentially inside Fabric. This allows you to mirror your database from whatever location that's sitting in. If it's on premises, if it's an Azure SQL database, I'm going to lean more into that. This is going to be Microsoft-based database technologies. It does say any database in here, so it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But it allows you to mirror that inside Fabric.
So that sounds like almost like a way to really quickly land your data into Fabric.
Yeah, I think so. And that's kind of where I'm leaning into it. And there's a great post in here by Priya where she talks around a lot of the details about how that connectivity works, what that really means under the hood. Essentially, when we set up the mirroring with the source database, it's replicating all of your data into Fabric on the one lake using Delta tables under the hood. So once they're in there, you can start to work with them, and that starts to open up a lot of possibilities for me. Where you always have so much difficulty ingesting data from different sources and different types of sources, depending on what that connectivity looks like, how the database is made up, is it using change data capture, that sort of thing. And it feels like it'll just simplify a lot of that. Now that replicates it into the data warehouse option, but from there you can use that in any of the workloads. So once it's in that data warehouse workload, you can use it in a lakehouse, you can use it in data science, you can connect it straight up to Power BI. So I think that might take some of those kind of architecture diagrams that we've talked about in the past, and certainly that Microsoft have been kind of talking around, and maybe muddle them up a little bit, maybe. So it'll be quite interesting to see how each of those components and artifacts in Fabric fit into that bigger picture with mirroring now in the mix. So there's a lot to dive into.
I think most of the patterns that I've looked at have talked about Lakehouse for landing your raw data, and Warehouse being more about that curation and surfacing up that kind of modeled and cleansed end product to users. But yeah, like you say, that kind of tips it on its head a bit. But then at the same time, with one lake anyway, it's only one copy of the data anyhow. So even I guess if the item that facilitates that mirroring is a warehouse, you're still going to get, like as you say, any workload can still data once it's been landed. So
yeah,
I've got to say CDC has been one of the banes of my life in some previous projects as well. So any easy way to do that sounds great.
Yeah, I got a few scars here myself. But yeah, so that's something I'm really interested in, really excited about, and yeah, we're going to do a much deeper dive on that, so that will be really interesting. Keep an eye out for that. Beyond that, so there's, as I said, there's so many announcements that have came out, and yeah, if you jump onto what we're looking at just now, the Fabric Microsoft Fabric blog, there's a lot of information in there, and there's a lot of detail around many of the announcements that came out, and you'll probably find there's quite a few really interesting ones that are buried quite deeply. There's a few that we'll talk about in more detail around just like Git integration, some shortcuts to different sources and things like that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, shortcut into Dynamics 365. I'm sure that was a new thing that came out of the blue. So I know with like, is it Dataverse, where you could basically dig into your Dynamics 365 data and sort of Power Platform land. And now they're talking about the fact that you'll be able to sync Dynamics 365 data directly into OneLake as a Delta file and start consuming that with Fabric workloads as well. So that's got potential to be quite a powerful use case as well.
Yeah. And the goal that they seem to be kind of moving towards is just making everything a lot easier and a lot simpler to kind of engage with. So it's quite interesting. Yeah, there's a lot coming and a lot on the horizon as well. I think there was another one that you kind of called out that you identified as well as a key announcement coming up.
As a key announcement, yeah, definitely. So is it an announcement? Is it a rebrand? Who knows? We're talking about the fact that the Microsoft Fabric Community Conference. Now, this conference, they did a section on it announcing it. There have been a few announcements already. I think it was originally called the Data and AI Conference, and it was going to be happening in December in Las Vegas. And then they had a few people sort of say, December's not really the best time of year. And so they've moved it out to March. So it's now going to be taking place the back end of March, which is going to be a really busy month for data professionals. People are going to do SQL bits. I don't know whether or not we might have some people watching, or certainly folks from AA might be going to things like the MVP conference as well. So potentially a really, really busy month. But they kind of relaunched. There wasn't massive fanfare, but certainly they've rebranded this conference, and then now it is a Microsoft Fabric conference as opposed to being a sort of more generic kind of data and AI type conference. So I guess to an extent that really kind of shows Microsoft's intent in terms of like Fabric being at the forefront of their solutions. They're putting it on. I guess traditionally we've had sort of Microsoft Build and Microsoft Ignite as the big sort of Microsoft conferences, and this is just a Fabric conference almost in its own right. So obviously a big emphasis from Microsoft in terms of pushing this capability. And yeah, maybe fingers crossed we might get to go, Craig. And if we do, maybe we might get to see some folks watching there. So yeah, we shall see. Watch this space.
I would expect to see quite a lot of really interesting announcements around about that time as well, if they're leaning so heavily into that, where the whole conference has essentially been named as a specific Fabric event. So yeah, that's really exciting. But yeah, lots more to dive into, lots more announcements that we want to kind of talk about and what they mean and where's the kind of benefits and drawbacks to certain things. But certainly the GA being the largest piece that just really opens the doors for a lot of organizations to even just start trying it and trying it out and working with it. Certainly some of the customers I've spoke to in the past have been quite kind of reserved about really touching it or going into creating proof of concepts and things because it's been in preview. But doors are open now. So
yeah, I think one important thing for me as well was the fact that now that it's GA doesn't mean it's the end of the journey either. It's not kind of, like a Friday night deploy, hit deploy and walk out for the weekend type thing. It's still very much, you're right. This is now GA. This has now got some more formal support around it, and we've sort of firmed up the pricing. But it's going to continue to evolve. There's still, we spoke about the roadmap on the last news video we did. That roadmap still hasn't been delivered. That roadmap's still going to continue evolving. And the product's only going to grow and get bigger, I think. So, 100%. Loads more to come. I think there's still really loads more that we can. There's probably loads more of Ignite we can dive into. I guess today's been more about just trying to get that sort of feel for those headline announcements and the big feature pieces. I know that already the November news blog has dropped, and I've had a bit of a skim through that, and there are definitely some nuggets in there that have been overlooked because they're not getting the same fanfare as Ignite. So keep an eye out, because we're looking to do a news post on the November release as well. Definitely loads to come. So loads more news still to come. Definitely keep an eye out for any way you can follow us. Do follow us. So we're on Twitter. We are on LinkedIn. We're even on Instagram, but I don't think we do much on Instagram, but we are on Instagram. And 100% on the YouTube channel. Do like and subscribe to make sure you're kept up to date with all the Fabric news from myself and Craig. Thanks for watching along today, and look forward to seeing the next one. See you later.